South Africans are being sold fake watered down diesel from petrol stations across the country. Nelson Mandela's most personal items like his ID and his hearing aids are being sold, auctioned off to the highest bidder, and Jacob Zuma will now have to pay back the more than 28 million rand that was given to him by the government to pay for his legal fees that the government never should have given him in the first place. Those are the three big stories that we're covering on this episode of News Worth Knowing. It's our once a week on a Thursday episode on all of the biggest stories facing South Africa in the last 7 days from The Issue with Dan Corder. So, welcome to this episode of the show. This is our second episode of the week. If you missed it, we released an exclusive interview with Justice Minister Ronald Lamola just on Monday. You can find it public access on all the streamers for podcasts and also on YouTube. We talked to him about South Africa's case to the International Court of Justice against Israel, and we also asked him about Zuma and the Guptas. And if you still don't know, we have a Patreon now where subscribers can get an exclusive expert interview new every single week. The latest one that we released yesterday was with an expert on climate and African development called Colin Bassans. And in this interview, I asked Colin, how might Africa actually survive the climate crisis? And how might Africa actually thrive and create wealth for its people through a just energy transition? Go check it out on Patreon. All right, let's get into those big stories for the week. This is News Worth Knowing for The Issue with Dan Corder. South Africa is a movie. Welcome to the watch party. First, let's start with this fake diesel scandal because it is crazy. The government's Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has found that at least 70 refueling stations across South Africa have been selling watered down fake diesel. They've been putting illuminated paraffin mixed in with diesel and selling it as diesel to make the diesel go further to get higher profits. But they've been going into our cars. And there have been many stories in the last few years of diesel vehicles being mysteriously broken because the paraffin in their system causes breakdowns of their engines. And these 70 filling stations are only the ones that the government found in this investigation. There are probably way more. And since people have started talking about this, I posted a TikTok about it. I've been getting messages from Africans from other countries who drive long distance trucks who said that when they do cross-border travel, shipping on these trucks between countries, they always make sure to refuel fully as they can in Mozambique or Malawi or another country before they get into South Africa, because they will not take the risk that a South African fueling station might take them out and take out their diesel trucks with these dodgy fake diesel mixes. I know we South Africans love cooking with gas, but driving with gas? No, guys, no. So where are these filling stations that the government has found to be selling fake diesel? Well, it turns out in every single province. The best place to be, according to this government report, is in the Eastern Cape, where they found only one refueling station that does this. It doesn't mean that there aren't more, but they've found one. Next best places to be with just 4 refueling stations are the Free State and the Western Cape. Then Gauteng has 5. And after that, it gets really deep. Northern Cape has 6, Mpumalanga 9, and then Northwest and KZN 13 each. But that's not even the worst. The worst is Limpopo, where they found 15 of these fake diesel refueling stations. 15! If you're in Limpopo and you need a refuel on diesel, literally drive to another province. Not Northwest though, because they have 13, or in Mpumalanga who have 9. Just go to Gauteng. Gauteng has only 5. Just go to Gauteng. You need to be safe. All right, news worth knowing number 2. Nelson Mandela's eldest daughter, Dr. Makaziwe Mandela, is about to auction off more than 100 of his really personal items. Because you might be thinking, but Dan, it's an auction and he's passed on, so you can sell the odd painting here and there. No, these are his personal effects. This is his hearing aid, his ID book, gifts from the Clintons and the Obamas. And this story actually started in 2021, where Dr. Makaziwe Mandela was taken to court to try and stop this mass sale of all of Nelson Mandela's items, because initially she wanted to, as part of this sale, auction off the key to his prison cell on Robben Island. And people tried to stop that because they were like, that's genuinely fundamentally part of South Africa's collective communal history. You can't just sell that to the richest Russian oligarch or, American tech billionaire who happens to have rocked up at this auction to add to his house keys as a trinket on his dressing table. And one of the reasons it feels so gross is because it feels like a clearance sale. It feels like a 30% discount, everything must go, the shop is closing. There's more than 100 items on there and they're so broad ranging in significance and value, it's giving Cash Crusaders. It's unclear whether or not that key will end up back in the collection that is for auction, but Dr. Mandela now has been given permission by the court to sell off all of these items, and it's just got South Africa twisted in so many knots because we all feel like this is a fundamental part of the country's heritage, and it shouldn't just be sold off to the highest bidder wherever they may be in the world to do with as they like. You must be wondering, why is she selling all this stuff off? What is her reason / excuse? And her claim, she insists that all of the money raised from this auction is going to go into funding a memorial garden in Madiba's honor in his memory. But firstly, how expensive really is a memorial garden when some of these items are going for 50,000 USD or more? Secondly, there are a ton of companies, there are a ton of donors, there are a ton of international do-gooders which would love to fund a memorial garden in Nelson Mandela's honor. We have seen how many of these kinds of projects have been funded by international donors and big corporates before. Ndaba Mandela, who is one of Nelson's grandchildren, has slammed what she is doing as a disgrace on public record. And it's just so galling because one of Nelson Mandela's legacies is how much wealth can be made from his legacy, not just the amount of money that he earned and then left for his children and his grandchildren, or the properties or the foundations, but the fact that the surname Mandela carries so much both metaphorical and literal currency. It's not hard for the Mandelas or the Mandela Heritage Foundation to go out and leverage his image to raise funds. So why can't that be done for this memorial garden? It's all so sus and it just tastes bitter. Number 3 for this week, you may have seen that Jacob Zuma is about to have to pay back more than 28 million rand to the state, to the government. Why? Because for many years now, it seems like the South African government has been paying for some of Jacob Zuma's legal bills while he's been trying to defend himself from a ton of different allegations, from state capture ones, way the way back to the arms deal case, which is still going on. What has happened is Zuma managed to convince high-ranking government officials in the presidency, Ramaphosa's presidency, ANC, well, kind of, former comrades, if Zuma's actually left because of this MK thing, but basically managed to convince them to pay a bunch of his legal bills using our taxpayer money out of state coffers through the state attorney. And then a couple of years ago, the Supreme Court of Appeal found that this was absolutely the wrong decision and that payment immediately needed to be stopped for Zuma. It was already over about 10 million rand in 2021. And not just payment had to be stopped, the money that Zuma had already taken, had to be returned to the state. Then it got really dodgy because for the last 2 years, it seems as though the state attorney did not go and try to get the money back. And then they were taken to court again. And then the presidency had to come up and deny that they had ignored the ruling of the Supreme Court of Appeal and continued to fund Zuma's legal bills. Anyway, then there were projections that actually Zuma by this time now had spent more than 35 million rand of the state's money. And then in our interview with Justice Minister Ronald Lamola just a few days ago, his claim was, no. We stopped paying Zuma's legal bills immediately when the Supreme Court of Appeal made their decision a couple of years ago. But with more deep and thorough and intense investigation from the state attorney, we've discovered that it wasn't in the tens of millions of rands. It's actually closer to 30 million rand. And now we know it's actually over 28 million rand. So I'll leave you to choose whether or not you believe that they did stop the payments in 2020, 2021, or whether they just continue to pay them and are now spinning that outcome. But yeah, it seems like Jacob Zuma will now have to pay back nearly 30 million rand in taxpayers' money from the state that he never should have been allowed to use in the first place, which all the more complicates this mess going on with him dragging the ANC and trying to relaunch his political career through this brand new Umkhonto weSizwe party. So that's News Worth Knowing for this week. Thank you so much for watching. And remember that News Worth Knowing and all of our other public access episodes comes out on all of your different podcast streamers if you want deeper analysis of these topics. One more reminder again that epic new interview with expert Colin Bassan's, expert on climate crisis and expert on African development, is out on our Patreon for a small monthly subscription fee. You support the show's existence and you also can go and access that and a range of other brilliant interviews. Lastly, if you still haven't, we'd love a like and subscribe, please, on this channel. It makes a massive difference as we continue to grow the show. See you soon.